Jason Goodman, who'll be starting in just a second.
So is Vinny Eastwood the most dangerous man in New Zealand? The police and YouTube say maybe yes. Vinny, how you doing?
Well, it was somewhat fabulous. Well, actually, that's a complete lie. This is the second worst I've ever been in my entire life, actually, to put it bluntly.
Wow, that's unfortunate. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. The second worst. Well, so looking on the bright side, at least it's not the worst.
The worst was when the police lied to me and told me that if I told them the truth that they'd go easy on me, and then I developed complex post-traumatic stress disorder and haven't been able to deal with stress and have panic attacks and stuff ever since. So that was the worst, and this is the second worst. So I'm at the moment emotionally, and I must apologize to your listeners as well if anything happens during this broadcast. It's a little untoward because I'm very emotionally fragile right now. I'm coasting between the spectrum of uncontrollable rage and crumpling up in a ball and crying. So that's sort of where I'm hovering right about now.
All right. Well, definitely we'll try to avoid any kind of anything that will upset you. Vinny, I think people who are regular viewers of Crowdsource the Truth are going to remember that you and I actually had the opportunity to meet in person just about 1 year ago, a little more than a year ago when I was there in New Zealand, came by to see you. That initial visit was prompted by, I wanted to get to the bottom of this whole Pete Santilli thing, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about Pete, but you and I got an opportunity to spend a little time getting to know each other off camera. You told me about some of the things that have gone on in that saga, and I haven't had a chance to share this with you yet, but I've fallen out with Pete because he recently put out a story about Larry Klayman that was totally untrue. There's strong evidence that is going to be coming into the mainstream very soon that will definitively prove that what Pete Santilli said about Larry Klayman was untrue. And it caused me to think that a lot of the controversy that you had raised, I sort of started re-examining Pete Santilli in a different light after that occurred. And I know that your interactions with him were quite upsetting with you. So I just wanted to mention that I've observed some of the stress that you've been put under, and I think it's important for us to sort of talk about this. Now, you said the police...
First of all, sorry. What was his name, the guy who said this story done about him by Pete Santilli?
This was Larry Klayman, the lawyer.
Okay, and he was the lawyer for the Bundys, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so first of all, I want to tell him that I don't have sympathy for what he's going through. I have empathy. Sympathy is synthetic empathy, and I don't have that. I know what it's like to have lies told about you by Pete Santilli. I know what it's like to endure the harassment that he's going through, and you have my full emotional support on that one, because it's not easy. I think back when it first started to me, I was doing 5 days a week in radio. After it happened to me, I went to 3 days, to 2 days, to 1 day, to eventually I had to take a whole 6 months off. It sucks the life force energy completely out of you when any psychopath, let alone one as prolific and horrific as Pete Santilli can be, comes out after you. And I want people to know that if you want to go out after him or go out after any psychopath...
No one should go out after Pete Santilli.
That's my point. That's my point. That's my point. If you do want to go out after him, bring 2 body bags, ladies and gentlemen.
No body bags, no going out after anybody. We're just pointing out that Pete has...
I'm talking about philosophically speaking, okay? Yeah. I'm not talking about literally here. I'm not talking about killing or murdering or any stuff like that, because that stuff's immoral. All right, unless of course they're physically attacking you and you are using the defensive use of force. If somebody's doing that and you do not defend yourself, you're going to die. That's against natural law.
Let me just pause you, Vinny. I didn't mean to take us down this road. I know it's a very sensitive topic for you. What I meant to bring up was to say that since our last meeting, I have a newfound understanding for some of the feelings that you expressed to me there in your studio when I was in New Zealand just a year ago. Now, I want to take us back because it was interesting for me to see this video where the police came to your studio, because I've stood out here on this deck and I knew the exact place where you were outside your office when they were very polite, these police officers. But take us through for a minute exactly what occurred. You've done some of the best and most comprehensive coverage of the Christchurch mosque shooting. Tell us what happened that brought these police to your doorstep.
I can't actually be sure, okay, because I asked them, they wouldn't tell me, okay? So I don't know why they were there. They don't know why they were there, you know, that kind of thing, which led me to believe that the police were actually just lying, you know? And police do this from time to time. They just tell lies, and they go out and they make lives harder for ordinary people. Usually the kind of people who are actually trying to make society better for other people, that's the people that the police get called on to go and to suppress them, that kind of thing. So why were they there? There's a couple of theories, all right? So theory number one is the crisis line set up by the Prime Minister the day after the shooting. Hey, there's this huge crisis. The media is making everybody freaked out about it. Let's open a crisis line after the shooting's already gone to say, hey, everybody, if you see anybody saying anything that's even slightly white supremacist, call us. We'll go and visit them. Unannounced, armed, you know, that kind of thing. So we had New Zealand military personnel that I've spoken to being visited at 2 o'clock in the morning by the New Zealand police to take their weapons. I've been visited 5 times by the police.
You have no weapons. You're not a gun owner, correct?
No weapons, no knives, not even so much as a pair of nunchucks. I mean, I've got huge cojones, but you can't hurt people with those. Now,
not a weapon, right?
But the question here is, why are they coming? Okay, so am I an intellectual commentator or something like that has a degree of influence in New Zealand? Yes, that's why they came. Why? Because I was saying things that the government didn't want people to know. For example, were there drills on the day of Christchurch, Vinny? Why, yes, there were 2, in fact. One, a sniper drill for the Special Air Services that also had NATO staff there, and we gave even Chinese snipers the ability to shoot to kill on our soil on that day as part of the operation.
Really?
Now, what's the likelihood that you'd be pulling off an operation about a mosque being shot up, and then that mosque being shot up in the exact same way that you planned for during the operational time frame? The answer is billions to 1. Okay, so the statistical likelihood that this guy, Brenton Tarrant, who was just talking with people on 8chan, get himself a couple of semi-automatic rifles, go into the place, shoot up the place, get completely away, and then shoot up another whole mosque, and then get away, and then get taken down. Then he goes to court, and when they charge him with murder. It turns out the person that they charged him with murder with was only one person, and that person was still alive and hadn't died.
Wait a minute.
So they're like, oh, okay, what were we doing? And then the trial goes on, and now it's saying that this guy's saying that he's not guilty.
So right, hang on, slow down a second, Vinny, because we've got this article here from, it's Whim re-reporting what the New Jersey Herald had, the New Zealand Herald, which is that there were gasps in the courtroom as the alleged Christchurch shooter pled not guilty to 51 murder charges. Now, he's pled not guilty, but of course, in the video that is now contraband in New Zealand, you can be put in jail for 10 years for even owning this video. The video that Tarrant put out shows things like people getting shot essentially point blank range in the head to the extent that their prayer caps fly off, but no blood is seen, no bullet holes are seen, no explosion of the cranium is seen. It's pretty anomalous compared to what we know bullets normally do to skulls. And there's all this bizarre imagery of this guy making hand gestures and things in court. So he's pled not guilty. What is happening now, today, in New Zealand relative to this shooting?
Well, we're getting rid of everybody's guns. We're getting rid of our national sovereignty, our national assets, and being further enveloped into globalism. We're restricting our internet so that nobody can say anything the government doesn't want, and anybody who is saying that anything that the government doesn't want is getting visited by police multiple times. That's what's going on.
You said the police lied when they came to see you. What did they lie about specifically?
No. I'm saying there's a difference between lying, like, my name's not Vinny Eastwood, versus lying, well, I could be Vinny Eastwood. that kind of thing is deception. Okay, so when they're coming around and they're saying, oh, we're just coming down to check you out and that kind of thing, what they're actually there to do is intimidate.
Right.
Okay. It's very obvious to me, but the interesting thing was it was only about a month before this whole incident happened that I was interviewing Christopher Bolin of Bolin.com, and he told me about what the cops did to him after he started writing his articles about 9/11 in Washington, D.C. I think it was in 2002 he started writing these articles out. The police stalking him, they were armed, they came out of their cars, they like broke his arm or something like that, twisting it behind him.
Came to his house, yeah.
And I was very, very concerned about that kind of thing happening to me. I mean, when somebody says, what do you mean in New Zealand? I go, yes, in New Zealand, okay? You ever heard of the Cayman Islands, a former British colony that's basically now just used as a huge money laundering pot that's actually run by organised crime? New Zealand, South Pacific version, okay? That's how we work here. We are a criminal cartel little colony, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a great marketing team that tells people to come here for tourism, which is incidentally our number one industry behind money laundering.
Really?
That we are 100% pure New Zealand. Okay, now in my opinion, that statement is 100% pure BS, just like all PR is BS. All right, so essentially we've got really toxic rivers, we've got incredibly corrupt government, we've got police that lie, cheat, steal, and work with the gangs all the time. We've got arms coming in from overseas that are being imported by MFAT. That's the people who control our borders. They've got presences in all of our ports. Guns are coming in because you cannot have guns in this country unless they're either A, government approved, or B, organised crime approved. 2% of gun deaths in this country are committed by registered gun owners. That means 98% of the murders committed by guns in this country are committed by organised crime who ain't registered gun owners. All right? Now, how's gun control helping all of them? I'll tell you how it's going to help. In England, when they restricted all their guns and everything like that, the murder rate started shooting up. The murder rate for guns started going down, all right? Because they couldn't murder you with guns anymore, but they also knew, the criminals did anyway, that you couldn't defend yourself with a gun anymore either. So they just stabbed you instead. And so knife deaths have gone up astronomically. And now it's an incredibly dangerous place to live. Now in the United States, we're looking at Washington, D.C., we're looking at Chicago, gun ban zones. Highest murder rates in the continental US in gun ban zones. Why is that? Because the criminals know that the victims are unarmed.
Because and it's interesting, you're not a gun enthusiast, but everything that you're saying are the types of things that I think people who are opponents of gun rights would say, that gun owners would say. But I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense.
Well, the thing is, these quote unquote gun enthusiasts are people who do this thing called looking at reality. All right, so when you look at reality, these things come up. You know, they're called statistics, facts, right? And as I've always said, there are three things you can't argue with: facts, results, and that statement. Now, the thing is, the thing that's going on here, right, is you'll have people who are all advocates of gun control. Incidentally, they're all UN supporters. Now, what happened to every single culture from Edward the Longshanks taking the swords off of the Scottish in the late 900s AD, the times of Robert the Bruce and William Wallace? Hey, all the Scots got enslaved and then exterminated, and they eventually had to fight a war of revolution in order to get their freedom. Interestingly enough, what happens in every single society, without question, where the domineering class bans weapons for a certain group of individuals. That certain group of individuals gets enslaved and subsequently exterminated every single time, without exception. Okay, ladies and gentlemen? So, you want to take guns off the population, do you? What you are saying to me, is that you want me dead, is that you want to die, is that you want to see blood in the streets. You want everything to be stolen from your countrymen that they have labored over generations upon generations to build. You want to see it all washed away and burned to ashes around you while you gleefully watch. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen to you, ladies and gentlemen, who really want to take guns away. Why? Because guess what happens to all of these countries that have their guns taken away? All the revolutionaries who tried to take away the guns are among the first to get exterminated by the next invading army. Why? Because you're the revolutionary people who could take the country back now that you realize the tyranny that you've brought in. That's why you'll be killed first.
Let me calm you down for just a second there, Vinny. We don't want to anticipate anybody getting killed, but I appreciate what you're saying.
I'm saying historically.
Yeah.
This is historically.
Let me, if it's all right with you, can I play this video of the police visiting you? Maybe some of our viewers haven't seen it. Let's take a look.
The Vinny Eastwood show. We've got two lovely officers here who've turned up. Officer whom?
Greer.
Officer Greer and?
Erica.
And they've just come by to check out, how we're doing and that kind of thing. Apparently they're checking out all sorts of different people and just popping by and saying hi. So I wanted to know just exactly what is the point of the visits, because obviously this isn't the first one today and it probably won't be the last one today, am I right? You're visiting all sorts of people for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Do you yourselves have any clue why you're going, or is it just kind of like names on a list and just visiting them one by one?
We can't sort of go into that, sorry, Vinny. Not on camera anyway.
What about details on me, on my personal case? Could we go into that?
Yeah, but just with you.
Yeah.
Not on camera to the...
Well, the problem is transparency is really important for a society to remain free, right? And I think transparency comes through honesty, integrity, that kind of thing. And integrity means to behave with honesty and a moral conscience at all times. Okay, so my problem is, this is, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is my 5th visit from the police. The first was 4 in 4 days, that kind of thing, including a phone call from these guys' boss, Sam. And now this makes a visit number 5. Now, I believe the issue is somehow related to the Christchurch mosque massacre, because I have a rather large YouTube channel. I've got 40,000 plus subscribers. To put that in perspective, the New Zealand Herald has 28,000 subscribers. News Hub has 22,000 subscribers. So I'm the largest New Zealand news channel on YouTube in the country, have been for about maybe 10 years. Now, my coverage of this particular issue of Christchurch has been very, very different to how other people have been covering it, because I've been down to Christchurch, I've interviewed the witnesses, I've interviewed the victims, I've interviewed the president of the mosque, that kind of thing. And my whole point on this is how can you understand the ins and outs, the compassion of a particular subject, because when you go into it with political aims, or you go into it with, not to put too fine a point on it, law enforcement aims, there's only one way we're looking at it. Whereas I think this is a multifaceted thing, because you've got this whole element, this fear element. Even now yourself, I mean, you guys are you in any way afraid to be on camera?
No.
No, I mean, just be honest. I mean, because of the contentious nature of the issue and that kind of thing, and how many people will watch the video, there's nothing you're doing wrong. There's no reason to be afraid, that kind of thing. And I believe that a lot of the other people that you might be visiting today will basically should have the same response. There's nothing you're doing wrong. There's nothing to be afraid. We're just here saying hi. And I think that's basically the point of the visit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, and you have yourself a wonderful day. And
Phone number. I probably would prefer you didn't put that up on your channel. That's all.
Oh well, we all have our preferences, don't we? Okay, guys. Well, I really hope that you have yourselves a really wonderful day.
You too. Thank you very much.
Well, they were generally pretty polite to you, but it is somewhat intrusive to have the police.
No, but what did they say? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. As soon as that phone's on, they are tight-lipped. They say nothing. And that's what every single other visit, the 4 other visits, was exactly like that. All right? They don't have any questions for me, and they aren't saying anything. Okay? To me, that's just like, okay, we're here to intimidate you and try to bust you if we can, and we can't, so we'll just come again and again and again.
They didn't tell you to stop broadcasting, did they?
Oh, well, no. And the thing is, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I can be incredibly charming. And so I was like running back into the house. Excuse me, ladies, one moment. I beg your indulgence. They come out with the phone right in their face. Hi, everybody, it's Vinny Eastwood. You know, it's just like, you don't see it coming. All right, they're ill prepared for this, and each time that these police have come to my thing, and this happened the first time somebody from the tax department came to my house. They leave my house as my friends and allies, and they're like, "Wow, this guy's so nice," you know, that kind of thing, and that's my game.
Have you spoken to these officers since that first meeting?
No, hell no, hell no. I'm not voluntarily speaking to police officers, man. They come into my house unannounced, you know.
Have they come back?
How many have they come back? Not since then. Not since then. This is a number of weeks ago. But then bear in mind, my channel with the interviews with Kurt Richard Haskell, Cody Snogers, and Ollie Damagard, these three guys who are claiming the shooting had anomalies and things of that nature, have been pulled. The
channel itself has been pulled.
No. The videos on the channel with those guys in particular have been pulled, and those were the ones questioning the official story writ large. Now, myself and Ben Vision, another New Zealand journalist, have been working on this for some time. He just came out with an article yesterday that is absolutely voluminous with information explaining Mossad connections in New Zealand, secret tunnel networks and things like that are going under the mosque. Real freaky stuff. And so when you're looking at this kind of situation, I can see why they haven't been back, because I haven't done anything to aggress them, because I've been terrified, abso-freaking-lutely terrified of getting busted, of cops coming to my house and stuff like that. I mean, I got complex post-traumatic stress disorder from getting busted from the cops, like back in, for F's sake, 04. And this is something that I've had to live with. I can't get jobs because I have panic attack at the job interviews. I can't do anything that ordinary people can do, but I can do things that even extraordinary people can't do. You know, running a radio network, running a radio show, doing my band, helping out the legalized cannabis party, and those are just the four things that are on my schedule stuff to do. There's also bazillions of other things that I'm doing, trying to fight 5G at the moment now. You know, but the problem is, I've noticed that I think I was going from maybe 200 viewers on the channel, or per live stream. You know, no announcements, no nothing, just like straight up live, and then you've got 200 viewers just like that. Now I'd struggle to get 50. I've taken a couple of weeks off because I was just so stressed by this whole situation.
Well, let me pause you a second, Vinny, because let's talk about that, the effects on your YouTube channel. I mean, you've done some of the most comprehensive coverage of this. I'm just showing everybody right now this video called Christchurch Mosque Shooting the Bigger Picture. You went there, you're looking at the grounds surrounding it. Were you able to go into the mosque at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, did you see any signs of a shooting having taken place there? How long after the incident was this?
2 weeks, and they'd already covered everything up. Okay, literally. Okay,
right.
New carpet, new plaster, new windows, new everything. Okay, all the evidence was, all the physical evidence was gone at that point within 2 weeks. Mosque full of people. Okay, we go in, we talk with some of the people. We had a interview with the president of the mosque, Bashir Khan. We had an interview with another Muslim leader at the Linwood Mosque, not too far from there. And a couple of interviews with some guys at a bar who just happened to be, you know, locals in the area who saw dead bodies and things like that. And also one of the survivors from the Linwood Mosque. And so on my playlists, on my YouTube channel there should be a Christchurch Mosque Massacre playlist. And along with all of the interviews and all of the videos that I did while I was down in Christchurch, there's also all of the radio interviews and things like that we've done before, during, and after the trip down to Christchurch as well. So when you watch that playlist, there's going to be two things that really come out at you. Number one, I'm the only alternative media person in the world that actually went down to Christchurch to get the story from the horse's mouths. Mm-hmm. Number two, I'm the only media in New Zealand that told any truth about the whole incident, and I'm the only media in New Zealand that's been visited by the police for telling the truth about it. All right, so that's good indications that I'm onto something. But frankly, I'm frightened, at the moment to even continue my work on this thing, because I've interviewed a lot of activists over my thing, hundreds and hundreds of activists. Almost all of them has a real horror story about something that they pushed too far and they went too far, and then something really, really bad happened to them, even though what they were doing was right and legal. Okay, so the New Zealand police don't uphold the law. If anything, they're the ones who break it more than anybody else. So if police are coming up into my steps, the law will protect me. I'll sort it out in court. Aren't thoughts that occur to me. Okay, what occurs to me is some deceptive, incredibly evil, dangerous animals have just come upon my property, and they're going to try and get me somehow. That's what my brain tells me, and that is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. If cops are on your property, they're trying to get you. The key is, don't let them.
Well, so for people who want to see these videos that Vinny is describing, if you get onto YouTube and just search for Vinny Eastwood, thankfully he is still there. The Christchurch Mosque Massacre playlist is there, and as Vinny's describing, he's gone into really remarkable depth on this reporting. It's quite good. We don't want to talk right here about the anomalies that Ole and Cody and Scott Bennett and myself and others have pointed out about this shooting, but the reporting here in the United States was also very limited in my view. You've mentioned that there were 2 mosques. Now the one that we're looking at right here, Vinny, this is the one where the video was shot. This is which one is this?
That is the Al Noor Mosque, and the other one is not actually a mosque; it's actually a masjid.
So it's
which is basically a mosque.
Right. Well, it's interesting that we saw this video with all these anomalies. We have now Brandon Tarrant pleading not guilty to murder, and we have this other mosque where we haven't seen any video footage, not even security surveillance footage. The original video of Tarrant's alleged rampage is contraband. You're not even allowed to own it. You're not even allowed to view it. You're not even allowed to share it.
You can't even recommend somebody see it. Like, seriously, if somebody asks you, hey, can I watch the video? Where can I watch that? And you don't tell them, don't watch it. Don't search for it. You can go to jail for up to 14 years. All right.
This is
I just went to jail
Vinny.
for 21 months.
It's really, the video. It's quite bizarre. I mean, in the United States, we hear quite a bit, even outside of the United States, about the Constitution, freedom of press, freedom of speech. Does New Zealand have a constitution? Are you guaranteed free press, freedom of speech?
We have the Bill of Rights. And just as George W. Bush said, the Constitution is just a piece of paper. What matters is who enforces your rights, who enforces the Constitution. The question is, do you know your rights? And even then, is the government actually there to protect your rights? Or is it just there to make BS statements about itself and its own awesomeness so that it can continue to steal money from you unlawfully with taxation that they give to foreign bankers? That kind of thing.
And did that Bill of Rights only just come about in 1990?
I'm not sure. I think so. New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990. That might have been a wee bit of a word print. Now, theoretically, we do actually have a constitution, but it's the Australian Constitution. We're actually in it as the 7th state of Australia.
Wow.
So that's something a lot of New Zealanders don't know. But our foundation document isn't really the Constitution, and it ain't the Bill of Rights. Our foundation document is actually the Te Reti o Waitangi, or the Treaty of Waitangi. And essentially what that did is Māori chiefs ceded limited sovereignty to the British government over their lands in exchange for protection from the French. And,
well, let's take just one step further back, because I think a lot of people in the United States are totally unaware of the history of New Zealand and the Maori people. The Maori are the South Pacificers, Pacific Islanders, who just got in huge canoes and went out in the ocean and basically discovered New Zealand, right?
Legend tells that was the way. I mean, there's been some controversy to that fact, and immigration, and people get really sensitive about these issues. And because I'm a white guy, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, you can't talk about Māoridom or anything like that. It's like, okay, who was the only journalist in New Zealand history to ever be invited by the kingitanga, the chiefs of Aotearoa's Māori community, the kaumātua, the elders? Who was the only New Zealand journalist to ever be invited to their temple?
Was it you?
Okay.
That's huge, Vinny. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Okay, so has anybody else ever been invited since then except me? No? Okay. Right, so if anybody wants to think that I don't know anything about Māoridom or don't have respect for it, they're retarded, okay? Or psychopathic lying scum. And I will bloody beat you to death with my words if you ever try and question me about that.
I think you can't say retarded. I think you can't say that.
Well, see, we got no free speech even on these platforms.
Well, we don't want to insult people who are suffering from mental disabilities, but we get it. Those people are...
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has this thing called context, right? When they say something, they mean something specific, and then people try to take it out of context and say, oh, no, you could have meant this. It's just like you knew it didn't because there was this thing called context that was there. Anyway, here's basically the rough story for Americans. Okay, so a bunch of Europeans came over to the place. They found a whole bunch of Māori people here, gave them infected blankets and stuff like that, and then they got really sick and a whole bunch of them died, and then they took all their land off them and then did a whole bunch of treaties with them and said that, oh, no, we won't take the rest of your land off you, and then they eventually took the rest of the land off them, and now they're basically living in very small crappy communities, and they're suffering from overwhelming jail and health problems and things of that nature. That's the Māori people. Sound like Native American to you? Because it's the exact same methodology.
Yeah.
You come in, you conquer them by force if you can, conquer them by disease if that doesn't work, and then conquer them by treaty if that don't work. All right? So This is how the British conquered the Indians. They came in and they said, all right, I'll plant a flag. Well, this is England's country now. You know, and Indian guy goes, what are you talking about? There's 500 million of us. And then you go to, do you have a flag? And they got him, all right? Flags and the use of force, ladies and gentlemen. You can't accomplish anything without them.
Well, I'm learning a lot about you, Vinny. You know, you've got a pedigree that perhaps people in the United States aren't directly familiar with, but, you know, you and I are similar in that we're covering topics that are not necessarily popular and that the mainstream and certainly social media now wants us to be not talking about. So I want to encourage people to visit patreon.com/Vinny Eastwood and support the Vinny Eastwood Show. If you are seeing Vinny for the first time here on Crowdsource the Truth, this is one of the ways that you can watch his regular broadcast. You can also go on to YouTube, but of course Vinny is somewhat suppressed in what he can discuss on YouTube as his broadcasts are resulting in visits from the New Zealand police, from videos being deleted, and from this Orwellian type of thought suppression that's been rampant throughout the internet, particularly lately. So what would you say, Vinny, the general demeanor is among your fellow Kiwis? Is that a polite way to refer to New Zealanders as Kiwis, or is that rude?
We don't give a fuck. Anyway, this...
Sorry. What's the general sense there in New Zealand since the shooting? Do people feel...
I don't know. I'm stuck in my home. They took 30% of my revenue when they demonetized my channel, so my ability to actually afford to leave the house and get gas and go anywhere.
Demonetized.
Yeah. So last month I got $900 from YouTube from the month. About 98% of that money from YouTube was through direct super chats from donations from listeners and stuff like that, and maybe about $30 or $40 of that was ad revenue. Currently, there's about $4.
$4.
On my $4 on my entire account. You know, they cut me off, they demonetized me, and they didn't transfer the remainders of last month's show's revenue to me, which people donated to either. So when you're under a lot of financial pressure and stuff like that, and that's basically the reason why I'm so agitated and so flickery right now, because essentially my brain, after getting complex post-traumatic stress, has difficulty differentiating between a physical threat, okay, and a non-physical threat. So even right now, Jason, my heart's going...
Well, that's
My
why I'm
adrenaline's going,
sensitive
that
to
kind of
telling
thing.
you to calm down, because I did get a chance to spend a little time with you and your wife, or is it your wife or your girlfriend? Sorry, I don't
My
remember.
wife, yeah.
Yeah, you and your wife, and she alerted me to some of the things that I don't want to get you upset about, and I understand completely. You've been through quite a lot. You've had some phenomenal guests on your show throughout the years. Some of my favorites, of course, you've mentioned Ole, Cody, you've had James Corbett on there, lots of people. So I think viewers of Crowdsource the Truth would be very interested in the Vinny Eastwood show, and there's a lot of different ways that people can enjoy it. Patreon, obviously, right now remains a good way that people like Vinny and I can keep this information coming to people. We're moving more and more, Vinny, towards a need for the general audience to accept that these videos being free, they're not actually free. People are giving up their ability to connect with people like you who will seek the truth, who will go there to Christchurch and speak to the survivors, the families of the victims. They're giving that up when they go to a video portal like YouTube that's been exerting so much control over your show, over my show. Vinny, what can you tell us about what some of the victims' families said, what some of the survivors, the witnesses, what was the feedback that you got from those people there in Christchurch?
Well, when I went down there, I was scared. When I came back, I was grieving. All right, so when I went down, I'd already been visited by the cops 4 times. In fact, they rang me the night of my flight and visited my house while I was on the flight and asked my wife where my whereabouts are.
Wow.
All right? Yeah. So that's what I mean by I was scared when I was going down there. One of my listeners put $1,000 cash on my table, and I said, "Bro, that's not going to be enough. I need plane tickets. I need a phone so I can actually film and live stream while I'm down there. That kind of thing. It's going to be at least like 3, 4, 5 grand or something like that." And the listeners donated it. Just boom, like in a couple of days. Just I'd never seen support like that before in my life.
People want the truth.
Well, here's the problem. They wanted the truth that was being advertised by international mainstream media. Okay, they saw this huge incident in Christchurch. They're incredibly suspicious. I was incredibly suspicious when I first watched that video. In fact, I've only watched it once. I watched it on the day of the attack, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to send you to jail for 14 years if you watch it again." And I'll just be like, oh, delete, that kind of thing, because I'm not freaking stupid. Here's the thing: don't get caught, don't go to jail, because, ladies and gentlemen, you're very ineffective at helping society when you're in there. Okay, so anyway, I went down there, got off the plane. I was very, very frightened, but fortunately a couple of my listeners were there to meet me off the plane and have a few hugs, and went around and had a smoke some weed and that kind of thing. Went to bed. Then we were staying at a backpackers not too far from the Linwood Mosque, like just around the corner actually. And we went down there. Ben, my co-reporter there, he had to get himself a new T-shirt, so we went in there. And on our way out from the mall, getting a T-shirt, we had this guy going, "Hey, are you Vinny Eastwood?" And so I'm like intimidated, just going like, "I could be." and he's like shakes my hand, gives me $50. And then we start talking for about 2-3 minutes. And then another guy comes up behind me. "Are you Vinny Eastwood?" Shakes my hand, gives me $20. It's just like, this is just walking through a parking lot, right?
Well, and people should know, Christchurch is a pretty small town. It's not like some huge bustling city.
Well, sure. But me, I mean, I've only gotten maybe, 20,000 the most on one of my shows and stuff like that. But to be accosted by not one, but 2 people going through a parking lot, is pretty extraordinary, right? A bit of support, and that really chuffed me up. And then so we went to the Linwood Mosque, and we filmed the cops there. And one of the cops just like grabs the fucking phone, and oh, sorry about the swearing there. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. He grabbed the phone and wouldn't let me film him, so I'm like, okay, let's film something else.
Is it against the law to film police in New Zealand?
Only if you've got a gun, right? And they can point that at you at any time. Then it's anyway. We interviewed while we were there a imam who'd actually come down from Auckland, a mosque in Auckland, to visit the place. We interviewed one of the survivors of the mosque, Elliot, and he told us how he'd locked himself in the bathroom and stuff like that while all the shooting was going on. He told us about how he'd had to step over the dead body of one of his friends to leave the mosque. He
Now,
told
was
us how
that in the
police,
mosque? Was that in the mosque where Tarrant was, or
Linwood.
the other one?
No, this is the Linwood Mosque. But the thing is, we've confirmed from the CCTV footage. I was very, very suspicious that there was only one gunman until we saw the CCTV footage from the Linwood Mosque, and we see Brenton Tarrant coming in and shooting and then leaving.
Wow.
Because
So you
even
saw that footage.
eyewitnesses from that incident on the mainstream media said that there were two shooters, or said that there was somebody waiting in the car and stuff like that. And we've since confirmed that to not be true.
But Vinny, wait. So you saw the closed circuit security footage at the Linwood Mosque, or sorry, at the Al Noor Mosque.
Ben Vidgen did. All right, he's actually still down there in Christchurch, still completing his investigation. He's been down there since I went in the end of, I think it was mid-April, I think, that we went down there. And he's still down there, still getting info. And it was only last month that he managed to get the mosque person there to show him the CCTV
Has that
footage.
been released by anyone, or?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure as yet. But when we were talking to the two guys at the bar about the shooting and that kind of thing, as well as with Elliot, the survivor, each of them were kind of like confused as to how somebody could drive from the Al Noor Mosque all the way to this Linwood Mosque in as short a time frame as they did. Now, for those of you who have watched the video, and I can't recommend that you do it because I'll go to jail for 14 years, you can see that he's not waiting for lights. You can see that he's speeding, that kind of thing. And then the video cuts off in the middle of it. Now, you don't know why that is or whatever, but at the speed that he's traveling, and we've had a couple of people that have actually done the route and stuff like that, and at the speed he's traveling, yeah, you can absolutely get from one of the mosques to the others. Run in, grab the car, drive over, shoot up the other place, jump back in the car, and drive off a little bit, and then he gets T-boned by a cop, pulled out of his car, that kind of thing. All right.
But is that the allegation, that it's Brandon Tarrant shooting at both mosques, or it was another shooter at the Linwood?
No, same shooter.
Huh. So has there been any photographic? Why would he live stream the one at the first mosque and then not the second?
Well, it appears that the live stream was actually cut off while he was fleeing from the other one. And this happens all the time with live streaming as well. And New Zealand's mostly only operating on 3G and stuff like that. So the internet connections down here, especially on mobile broadband, is remarkably weak.
And particularly in Christchurch versus Auckland or Wellington, Christchurch was way less connected to the internet than those other larger
slightly
cities.
less, but just remember also Christchurch has had a couple of very severe earthquakes and things like that. They still got infrastructure issues. The roads are still bumped out. The buildings have fallen to pieces and stuff like that. There's still, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that's a factor or whatever. But the first thing that occurred to my thing is like, oh my God, it didn't happen, and we see all this thing. But then when I come back and I'm actually in a state of grief because I've been with these people who've seen their friends murdered in front of them. That kind of thing, it made it very, very difficult for me to continue that whole CGI or whatever narrative, especially since Max Egan, God bless his heart, he was in Australia outside of New Zealand jurisdiction. He did the work I would have done if I wouldn't have gone to jail. He went through every single frame by frame to see whether or not any of these claims were true. Did the glass break when he shot the gun through the windshield? Did the bullets actually hit the ground as they ejected from the thing? Now, a lot of people don't know that there's actually 3 versions of the video out there, and they're all of varying quality. One's 360p, 480p, and 720. Now, Max managed to get a hold of the 720p one, and as anybody who knows with internet lag, with talk radio show hosts and what have you, you can see things disappear or go from one space to another or whatever, and that's due to lag. That's due to pixels and things like that.
Well,
and
video compression plays a role in this that a lot of people who were maybe experts at weaponry and other things weren't necessarily experts in video compression, and gave a lot of very early inaccurate statements about it. You know, Vinny, people can
that's
still...
right, yeah.
Yeah, people can go on to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and there are 2 separate videos that we've done, one with Ole Damagard and Cody Snodgrass, and one with Scott Bennett, where we go through a lot of the same things. I have seen that Max Egan video, and he did a lot of very good coverage of it. So let me ask you this. If you were to go on your computer in New Zealand right now to log on to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and watch our Patreon videos about the New Zealand shooting, you'd be subject to arrest in New Zealand? How would they know?
That depends. That depends. If you've got footage of the shooting and that kind of thing, if the footage is actually playing and it's not just still images and things like that, here's the problem. They've sent a chilling effect, and I have been deeply affected by this chilling effect more than any other journalist in New Zealand, I feel, principally because they're simply saying, we're making the law up as it goes now, and you can go to jail for something you didn't even do. That's basically the kind of the gist that I'm getting from the current regime of Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. This is a very terrifying communist dictator, ladies and gentlemen, and I am not dealing with it very well. I'm very, very frightened. I'm very, very stressed. I'm. You know what the worst thing is, Jason?
What?
And I want to just be personal and have a bit of confession here.
Yeah, sure.
I've been mean and short with my friends. Okay, I've started a fight with 3 friends that I've talked to in the last 4 or 5 days. I've started a fight with, and it was just yesterday that I realized I'm the one starting those fights. I'm the one who's aggro. I'm the one who's in a bad place. I'm the one who's being mean and thoughtless and saying things I shouldn't say. This is the kind of situation that I'm in right now. This is the sort of psychological pain that simply being financially restricted has done to me. Let alone the fact that I can't monetize my channel, can't get super chats, can't live stream as I once did. It's just it's an emotional roller coaster ride, and I think that's probably the whole idea as well. Because if I was prepared, the first day of that shooting, I was absolutely prepared. That's why I did the best coverage in the world on the topic. You know, from day 1, I had Ole Damagard. From day 2, I had Kurt Richard Hansen. From day 3, I had Cody Snodgrass.
Yeah.
Like and then they're all deleted, and then my channel's restricted. And
so when they were deleted, do you retain copies of them, or they're gone forever?
I've got copies, but here's the problem, Jason. I tried to upload it to BitChute, and BitChute censored them. Okay, so the censoring algorithms don't just exist on the main platforms; they're freaking everywhere. Right, well, that's the real problem. And I think
videos
maybe that's why I've been so depressed, is because I've worked really hard for 10 years on this platform. I've graded it. This is the largest collection of online protests, interviews with activists, and freeform thinkers from all over the world that has ever been created in New Zealand history. And I think, and I'm pretty sure that every other YouTuber of note agrees with me on this one, eventually we're going to be deleted. Everything will be gone, right? All of that work.
Well, that's one possible outcome. One possible outcome. I mean, it's interesting to note, Vinny, that the material that I've put about the New Zealand shooting on Patreon remains there. You also spoke about some of the YouTube shenanigans. You know, we did a video, Ole and Cody and myself did a video in 2018 that basically was deleted in 2018 for violating community guidelines. Now in 2019, this deleted video has gotten a strike that prevents me from monetizing the Crowdsource the Truth channel. So I'm sympathetic to the issues that you're raising. We've got just a few minutes left, Vinny. Let me redirect you here to a conversation about Jacinda. Is she the first female Prime Minister of New Zealand?
No, she's the third.
The third. But when I was there was
She's
a
the
big
youngest,
deal.
though.
The youngest, right. When I was there was a big deal being made. Hillary Clinton was there. It was one of the reasons I had gone. Big deal being made that Jacinda was a single mother and pregnant. And they were very pleased.
She wasn't single. She was with Clark Gayford, her partner, who's a TV presenter here in New Zealand.
Sorry, an unmarried woman
who helped her to get some incredibly positive press coverage. That's what these people do. They always marry somebody in the media so that they can give them nice press coverage. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, so, she's become sort of the figurehead of some of this Orwellian type information suppression. What's the feeling among your fellow New Zealanders about her as Prime Minister in light of the shooting? And
okay, well, there's New Zealanders who know and there's New Zealanders who don't know. The New Zealanders who know are an incredibly tiny minority, and the New Zealanders who don't know are the vast, vast majority. So, the New Zealanders who don't know go, oh, she's the best Prime Minister we've ever had. Oh, isn't she compassionate? Oh, she's wearing a hijab. Isn't that culturally appropriation? I love it so much. The people who know go, oh, okay, her father was a Freemason. She worked for Tony Blair. She worked for the Better Business Bureau, which cuts red tape for big businesses operating in the EU and strangles small businesses with red tape. She got recruited by Helen Clark, who's a member of the Club de Madrid, and Parliamentarians for Global Action, who both want to abolish national sovereignty and transfer all national strategic assets into the hands of foreign corporations. Her other mentor was Phil Goff, also a member of Parliamentarians for Global Action. So these people are globalist communists who recruited her. Then she staged a coup against the current leader at that time, Andrew Little, who's now her Justice Minister, took over the reins, won the entire election with really, really simple campaign slogans that meant nothing, like hope or change. You remember that? Yeah. Our one was, let's do it. Okay, so, and then they did it, and then they said in her little thing, cannabis being legal? Absolutely yes, absolutely yes. And then when she gets elected, what the first thing that happens is? Cops come and arrest all the green fairies that were helping her during the campaign.
Wow.
All the green fairies. These are people who are growing low THC, high CBD cannabis and specifically giving it to medical patients who cannot get it anywhere else because it's illegal for them to have medicine that works.
Right.
Jacinda had those people arrested.
You're talking about CBD treatments for epilepsy patients and things like this.
That's right. Okay, so that's where the people, they all got arrested directly after Jacinda got elected. Then Jacinda comes out with this little banner that says medical cannabis will be legal in 100 days, and we're going to have a referendum to make recreational cannabis legal. It's 3, 4, 5, 600 days later, medical cannabis ain't legal. The referendum was delayed until 2020 during an election, so that you can't make cannabis an election issue anymore, and it's non-binding, so that the government that gets in, whichever government gets in, can just say, nah. All right, so that's what the people who know about Jacinda know, okay? She's a globalist, groomed from the start, and she's basically here to usher us into the New World Order and lie about everything we want to hear. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's troubling, Vinny, because what you're describing is remarkably similar to what's gone on in the United States. I think most of our viewers are aware of the Five Eyes countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. Many would even say that the New Zealand, Australia, Canada, even the United States are fingers on the hand of the British Empire, and it's an interesting avenue to explore. We're just about out of time, so I want to remind people to visit patreon.com/Vinny Eastwood. Vinny needs our support more than ever. He is a prolific independent journalist in New Zealand. He's interviewed everybody from David Icke to James Corbett to Max Egan to even myself.
Mark Passio. I really want to mention Mark Passio there. He's great.
Yeah, so Vinny's got a lot of great content on his Patreon channel, and Patreon remains a good way to support independent journalism. You can see a lot of his reporting on the Christchurch shooting at the mosque by going to Vinny Eastwood on YouTube and clicking on the playlist channel. Also, Vinny's radio show can be heard on Radio Free America, American Freedom Radio. And that.
Oh, it's back up now. Yay!
Yeah, give people some details, Vinny, about the best way to find your broadcasts.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes.
The jokes are actually funny. You are a very charming guy, Vinny. People are commenting that for many this is the first time they're seeing you, so I'm glad we were able to do this again. And I think there's a lot more to be said about this sort of global reach of censorship and these real sort of like pinprick kind of death by a thousand cuts methods that they're using to suppress the information that people like you and I are trying to bring out. Is there anything that you want to say in the last few minutes before we wrap it up for tonight?
The last thing I want to say, and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's not my fault that I'm being censored and nothing's being done about it, okay? It's the fault of everybody who listens to me and doesn't help out when it happens, okay? That's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. We really are all in this together, and I want to see people supporting, their local alternative media when they're in trouble, I'm in trouble right now. I need support, but at the same time, I watched a video the other day, and I saw somebody who got demonetized or deleted or something like that, and they had all these people making all these videos supporting them and that kind of thing. I get deleted, I get demonetized. I don't see a single one, And the most immature thing that I could do at that point is blame my audience. It's like, oh, you're not doing enough and whatever. And then the fact of the matter is, we choose to blame other people for the situations that we got ourselves in and can get ourselves out of. So if you have been censored, don't blame your audience, ladies and gentlemen, like my instincts tell me to do. That's wrong. It's not a good thing to do. You can't even use blame itself. You have to take responsibility for what has happened, and you must do something about it. If you're feeling angry, upset, afraid, that's because you're supposed to be doing something about it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen? So I care not whether you are a host, whether you are a listener, or whether you've not even heard this kind of stuff before. You must take responsibility for your own actions and securing your future, the future of your family, and the future of your country. Because if you do not, neither your family, you, or your country will exist.
Dramatically put. I think I blame YouTube more than anyone else. They're the ones who are doing the censorship. But it was well said, Vinny, and I always appreciate our conversations, getting to know you better, and certainly appreciate the coverage you're reporting there on the Christchurch shooting. I think you've revealed even some more bits of information here. I'd be very curious to see if there's any way to see that security camera footage, and definitely want to have you back on again. Maybe what you and I could do is plan a Patreon specific show. We'll have a conversation offline about how we can get around the legal. I mean, I don't want you to go to jail.
That was
obviously
actually something I wanted to talk to you about, Jason. The other thing was when you're doing that private live streams on Patreon, I assume these are just unlisted YouTube links that are then posted in so people can watch it if they're a Patreon, yes?
Not what it is, but definitely we'll speak to you about that offline, Vinny. And I think what we should do is encourage people to support Vinny on patreon.com/Vinny Eastwood. And perhaps, Vinny, you and I could do one of those sort of secure Patreon-only streams, maybe with the other journalists who are working with you in New Zealand, so that this information can remain online. I'm happy to host it here in the United States to prevent you guys from having any legal exposure, but I think it's very important this information gets out. I think it's hugely important, as you said, that viewers who are as interested in finding the truth as we are, they need to support Vinny, they need to support Crowdsource the Truth, they need to support their favorite independent journalists, and you know, even if it's $2 a month, something very small like that spread out over thousands of people can keep this information flowing. We don't want to be, you know, trapped in this situation where all of the news that we all receive is controlled by millionaire and billionaire advertisements. So, Vinny, we will definitely have you back on the show very soon, and you and I will have a conversation offline about what we can do together to help bring this information to the people of New Zealand and the United States. Vinny, thank you so much for your hard work, and thanks for joining me today. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, brother.
Take care of yourself. Don't forget, tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we've got Unseen Libya with Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty. Turkish drones have just been discovered in a hangar in Libya. Jimmy and Joanne have information from the tribes coming to us tonight at 8:30. Get onto patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and don't miss that. I'll see everybody soon. Have a great night.